Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here at Tim Station to bring you my list preview that will be taking on Lane later on this evening. In the recent weeks, it has been a rough couple goings for some of the lists I brought from Canoptek Court, Grey Knights, and even the debut of the World Eaters. So now it's time to start working for the new recruits. With Pariah Nexus being what we will see for the foreseeable future, there is no change in the direction that we will be seeing for the majority of these armies going forward. Yes, there will be some new codexes dropped, there will be some data slate updates, and some changes to the game. But the biggest one has been with Pariah Nexus and how actions and how the game is played entirely. Which means that some of the lists that I was running prior have been made more obsolete. Small shifts and changes do not work as well, and there are some lists that need a kind of a bit of a facelift to be able to play the way that I want them to play. Today, we're taking the first attempts at Grey Knights. Now, Canoptek Court list that I'm working on does look similar to other ones, but I just made some modifications, but that's not what we're looking at today. Today, we're looking at the Grey Knights. Now, we have some new recruits that we're adding in here, so yes, there are some models that still need some love and some work, because I've got them built up and ready to roll and primed, but as fans of the channel may know, I am working on the World Eaters, and I currently am making some very good progress on that army to try and get that thing ready, because it is my paternity leave project, which I am currently on paternity leave. For those who have heard, yes, I had twins recently, on my birthday nonetheless. August 21st, which was my birthday, Leia and Sophia were born. So my two little baby girls are here, and sitting with them and hanging out with them and rocking them and being there for them. I've been able to do some painting in between, and we're getting those World Eaters ready to go. Again, that's not what we're here for today. Today, it's about the Grey Knights. One of the first lists that Lane and I discussed after the battle report and looking at things and how things changed. Initially, I was just under the impression I'll just cut a Dread Knight and keep everything the same. And turns out that cutting that one Dread Knight was a lot more of an impact to the list than I thought. Now, some would say, okay, so then just put in the 5th Dread Knight. I've seen that in many competitions. The issue that I've seen with it is I see a lot of those lists with 5 Dread Knights, and I see them go 4 and 1. So I feel like there might be a slight curve with the all Dread Knight, heavy Dread Knight list, Dread Knight spam, if you will, versus Pariah Nexus that gets to a point that some of the missions may lead to really bad matchups. That's just how I feel with what I've seen for some of the tournament results. It feels like that when you start getting closer to the end of the events, there are some armies and some builds and players, for that matter, that are able to handle and take down these heavy Dread Knight builds. So I looked more into, okay, let's look at Grey Knights again and recap what we need to do with Pariah Nexus, how we need to score these points and what we need to run. And I'm very excited to try out this list because it brings a lot of, brings some interesting things to the table, if you know what I mean. And we'll take a look at this. So let's go over into this list and talk about what I'm planning on doing with this thing today and see how this all shakes out. All right, here it is, the Grey Knights. Those will notice that there is a couple of unpainted Terminators. I mean, everything else is ready to go. But we do have 11 models that are in the works, to say the least. I've owned these guys. I've had these guys for a while. I just haven't had the need or necessity to really push forward with more Terminators. And I am actually excited to go with a heavier Terminator build. And this is the first attempt with this list. After I introduce you to everything, we'll talk about some of the possibilities that I've considered with this list. First and foremost, we have 3 characters in this list. So we have a Tech Marine and 2 Grand Masters. So the Grand Masters allow me to target the unit that they're leading with a stratagem for 0 CP, which is significantly necessary in this list. Now, I say 0 CP because a lot of the strats that I'm looking to target with the unit are 1 command point. The strat reducing abilities now in this army, or in the game, reduce the CP by 1. So having things like True Silver Armor, and, what else are we looking at? Mistademos, being able to do those for 0 command points because they're 1 is pretty big and can really help out a lot in the overall scheme of the game. These guys also allow me to ignore modifiers for the unit when they're attacking someone, so things like Armor of Contempt cannot be used, which is really nice. Now, the Grandmasters also come with a weapon. So the Grandmaster, who's fully painted as a side cannon, while the unpainted one will currently have an incinerator, and more on that in a minute. The Tech Marine, he's just a Tech Marine. Now, the Black Grandmaster is the one that will have the Sigil of Exigence, so if his unit is shot at, they can teleport away. The Grandmaster that is fully painted will have First to the Fray, so his unit from Deep Strike can drop in on turn 1, which has been a crucial enhancement. I would have to say probably one of the biggest auto-include enhancements with the Grey Knights, to be able to play on turn 1 and have still those aggressive plays, since this army is very aggressive. I kind of skipped over it, but for those who don't know already, the Grey Knights and their army rules, as well as their detachment rule, is that they have an auto advance 6 as the detachment rule, and then the army rule, this being 2,000 points, means that I can select 3 units on the battlefield that have the teleport strike keyword, pick them up at the end of my opponent's turn, and then deep strike them back in at the beginning of during the reinforcement step of the next turn. This allows for turn 1 deep strikes, but most importantly allows me to have very strong positioning, since I'm not using any of the units, which are more or less the Imperial vehicles that do not have the teleport strike keyword. All right, back over to the units. So, with these characters, 2 of the 3 will be leading a unit. The first, the Grandmaster, whom's painted, will be leading a 10-man brick of Terminators. These are Grey Knight Brotherhood Terminators, so they have the Apothecary and the Standard, and 2 special weapons. The 2 special weapons are going to be side cannons. I do like the 2 damage on them aspect. They're not too bad. But for the most part, this unit is just an objective-controlled brick. The banner giving them OC3 per model, as well as the fact that the Apothecary can put models back in the unit that have been destroyed. This is crucial for being able to just play missions. This is a very tough unit to move. I mean, you drop it in the middle of the field where your opponent can hit it with everything, yeah, they can get rid of them. But when you put them in a more defensive position, they become very difficult to get out of there and get to a point where your opponent kind of looks at it and goes, maybe I shouldn't even bother. Things like True Silver Armor to be able to reduce the AP by 1, combined with the fact of anything that's AP 2 going into cover, combined with True Silver Armor making that AP 0, means that these guys can sit on a 2-up pretty much all the way up to AP 3 before they really start losing some of their armor for it. And then if you do hit them with something big, still the 4-up invuln and the toughness 5. So these guys are very strong at being able to hold objectives, and especially it's not bad to use them early on in that aspect. So then later on in the game, pick them up and move them over somewhere else to continue playing the game in such fashion. Next up, we'll talk about the Grand Master, who is going to be the primed black one, who is going to be leading 10 Paladins. This is the first time I'll be running Paladins in 10th edition, actually. I have not. Now, in the past, I look and I always feel like Terminators are the way to go because of the high OC and the Apothecary. One thing that Paladins do not get is an Apothecary. So when you kill one, it stays dead. They do get the banner, so these guys will at least be at OC2, which is pretty strong considering they are not a battle line unit. Now, these guys will be coming with 4 Incinerators as their special weapons. The Standard can also take a special weapon, and he will have an Incinerator. Then you have the Grand Master, leaving us with 6 Incinerators in this unit. This unit is a huge hit to be able to drop in, burn something, and then sit there, much like the Purifiers have done in previous lists, and just overwatch potential. Combined with the fact of having the Sigil means I can be aggressive with these guys, and there's still a lot of defense from them. Now, in combat, they hit a little harder than Terminators. They ballist their weapon skill at a 2-up, and they also reduce you are -1 to wound when you shoot at these guys with a weapon that's stronger than their toughness. So these guys have that like mini transhuman from previous editions. Love these guys. I love their stat line. I'm really excited to try them out and see how they work. And then, yeah, continue getting them painted. Now, there are some things I'm considering in the future, which we'll talk about after we get through the entire list with these guys and how this plays out. But for right now, we are trying out a 10-man brick of Paladins with 5 Incinerators, Grandmaster taking it up to 6. Next up, well, we're still bringing some Dread Knights because they're really good. So first we have the Grandmaster Dread Knight. So the Grandmaster Dread Knight allows me to reduce any stratagem from 2 CP down to 1. This can be really, really useful in situations with the interrupt strat to be able to fight before our opponent does. Things like getting some dev wounds on there for 1 CP. So things like that can actually really, really help for him. But for the most part, one of the big reasons for taking the Grandmaster is that when he lands his charge, he is going to be able to hit like a truck. He will be at minus, because most of the things that he hits into, I'm hoping will be monstrous vehicles, which means he will be rerolling the hits, wounds, and damage results going into those targets. This guy is able to really, really cleave a big vehicle. I've tried the sword option on this guy before. The hammer is the way to go. It honestly is. Just the higher strength, the higher damage is really the way to go to really guarantee that you're putting that mark on those units. He will also be coming with a Psy Cannon and a Silencer. Next up, we do have our regular standard Dread Knights. So the standard Dread Knights are a little bit faster, and I like this for this. They're able to fall back, advance, shoot, and charge. With this army's ability to auto-advance 6, that means these guys can move 14 inches. Now, this guy will also be equipped with a hammer. Yeah, we're working on that. So he does have the hammer because, I really think the hammer is just the all-around best weapon on Dread Knights. And he will also have Psy Cannon and Silencer. I like the Silencers over the Incinerators on the Dread Knights because of the fact that I can keep them a little further back to play that game. Next up, we have a couple of troops to help us score points. So we have 2 5-mans of the Interceptors. Interceptors are insanely fast. They have a 12-inch move base. You could advance them 6 inches. There is a strat that allows them to count their weapons as assault. So you can move them 12, advance them 6 to get to 18, then move them then shoot, and then move them another 6. You can have them almost anywhere on the battlefield at any point in time. Not to mention the fact that these guys can as well pick up off the table, and then when they shoot at something, or when you put them back down and they shoot at something, they can then move, steal objectives, get in better defensive positions. These guys are going to be great for the secondary game, and that's what I'm mostly going to be using them for. Their damage output, being a 5-man, is not really going to do that much. They're better stats than some, so it'll be nice to have them, excuse me, be able to pick up some 5-mans or some other weak trash units that are trying to just score objectives. They're a little bit tougher than that. And a little bit stronger than that. And then on the toughness side, they do have a 2-up save, which makes them just obnoxious to have to deal with. And getting it down to just even 1 model can still do work. Still sticking with the units of scoring points, we have 5 of the Strike. Now, what I like about the Strike and why I'm taking them. Number 1, I call this unit usually the children running through a room turning on a light switch. You're constantly chasing this unit around the field, turning off the lights that it turns on because it has sticky objectives. So this unit can bound around the field, scoring me, giving me sticky objectives on points, and just scoring me points throughout the game. On top of that, they do have a 6-inch scout move. So this puts them in the realm of what the Interceptors could do, where they can move 6 inches, then move 6 again, then shoot, advance if need be. So there's a little bit more play that they can do initially because of that scout move. So I like these guys as well for that. Again, it's sticky objectives allows them to get to a corner and kind of hold an objective later on into it. So they're a good addition in this army. All right, and there you have it. So that's the list I'm going to be playing today. Now, a couple of things I'm in consideration is I'm really digging the all-out Terminators and bringing more Terminators. So I did build up, when I went and was working on some of this stuff and doing the modeling on it, I did build up an apothecary. So if I feel there could be a possibility where I change the paladins over to another squad of terminators, and I have another apothecary for that, so I can have two. So I can have both squads have an apothecary. There is the possibility of separating them into 5-mans and kind of just going with like a Terminator, generic Terminator spam build where I'm throwing 5-man squads of Terminators all over the field. Maybe drop the strike out of there, see if I can't carve a couple of points and just try to, put more. If I drop the Tech Marine and I drop the strike, plus the Paladin switchover, I think I might have enough points to get another squad Terminators in there so I could have, just a bunch of them. The other Grand Master may not be as necessary. I think that I would still want to keep a Grand Master, another Grand Master. And I know some people said Drago. I like Drago. His ability is awesome, being able to stick those charges. However, my fear is what happens when I don't stick those charges and I'm too close and something is you have to spend an additional command point to use a strat so I can't re-roll. All of these little aspects that would make it difficult within the game. So that's what we're looking at for this list and what I'm going to be trying out today. And we'll see after this game how it plays out. Now, a lot of what I'm going to be doing is going to be based around fixed secondaries. Typically, my fixed secondaries are probably going to be engage on all fronts because of my board coverage, and probably cleanse because I can constantly keep pressure on objectives and move around the field. And stuff like the Terminators can really hit and hold those objectives for me. Now, as well as the fact of being able to hit with the Terminators and continuously push, I can use softer units like the Interceptors and the Strike to hold other objective markers. So that's the game plan we're looking at going into this thing. There is, like I said, I do have that in my mindset of what if instead of taking 2 big Terminator bricks, if I chop that up and take a couple of 5-mans, maybe get 3 5-mans. I drop the Strike, drop the Tech Marine, drop the Paladins, 3 5-man squads of Terminators. I think those points kind of play out there well. So it's something to consider, and then still have the Grand Master in there to just kind of hang out with a 5-man, maybe switch him over to a Librarian or something in those natures, or drop him entirely for something else. There's the world is my oyster with this list. But initially, this is the route I want to go because I feel like the Paladins and where it comes in, why Paladins? They reduce that damage for the incoming attacks. So many flamers because I dropped the Purifier, so many flamers for such an aggressive offensive unit. And it allows me to, that is what their purpose is to be aggressive early. The sigil on them means that if you shoot them, I can jump away. If you move in to try to charge me, I can spend a command point or spend it for 0 and jump away. There's a lot of tech around them that makes them difficult to deal with in the early goings of the game. And they're a unit I can put on the table because I can pick up and just deep strike back down. So a lot of tech behind them. We'll see how I feel with them and how I like them. And, like I said, I might go with just a couple different Terminator units because Terminators out of Grey Knights are very, very strong. But initially for this, we're doing the Paladins. 6 Incinerators, and we'll see how that goes. All right. On the final note, as I mentioned before, for those who are interested in the babies and that life, the twins are here. My wife was induced on August 21st, which was my birthday, and that was her idea. So they are here. I do have one of my children who is named Lucas, and now I have a Leia. So that's a real thing. I'm a real person who has 2 children that are named Luke and Leia, to add to my family with as well Timothy, Dylan, and Sophia. Sophia was the first one born. She's super, super tiny. She's adorable, and she's doing very well. Leia as well is doing very well. You can see so much, only 1 pound difference, but man, Leia is a little bit bigger than you can really see it. But both are doing well. They're being babies, need to feed all the time, crying. But, oh, man, I already love them so much. Such little sweethearts. And it's so crazy, just the aspect and the feeling. Anyone who has twins or knows anyone with twins, just that feeling when you're just like, you're holding one baby, you're like, oh, but there's another one. And there's 2. There's 2 of you. Oh, It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and I look forward to just everything that they're going to be into. My wife and I made the joke, so we feel like Sophia because how she's her personality already that's developing. She's going to be the overachiever, and I feel like it's going to be one of those things where like Leia comes home and says, look at this pretty picture I drew. And Sophia goes, look, I painted the Sistine Chapel on the ceiling. And just go, come on, Sophia, let Leia have her moment. But mother and girls are doing great. And yeah, that's that. All right. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.